So, first and foremost, happy Halloween and happy birthday to Nick Saban, who stays striking fear into all of us. And as you can see, I am not going to waste my shot. Number 5, Ohio State defeated number 20, Penn State, 33-24, literally 20 minutes ago at the shoe. Penn State was the first team Ohio State has played with a winning record since losing to Oregon. It's the first team it has beaten with a winning record since its season opener against Minnesota, and it's the first ranked opponent the Buckeyes have beaten all season, which is great news for Buckeyes fans because you're going to move up in my rankings. Jerron Cage turned out to make all the difference in the first half with a scoop and score. In a game, the Buckeyes led 17-10 at half. Penn State outgained that Ohio State juggernaut offense, though, 209 to 189 yards. Each had just 19 rush yards apiece in the first half. And the difference was Penn State's two turnovers to Ohio State's 1. Now, Travion Henderson walked into the game averaging 8.8 yards per carry. Through the first 7, and look, he looked really good through those first 7, but he was held to just 6 yards on 9 carries against Penn State in the first half. Means that wideout Garrett Wilson outgained Henderson with 1 carry for 7 yards in the first half. Sean Clifford also outplayed C.J. Stroud in the first half with 17 of his 24 passes going for 190 yards with, C.J. Stroud only having 15 of 24 for 170. Both of them had a TD apiece. Penn State tied the game up on a Jahan Dotson score for 6 in the third, giving them 10 straight points and making the score 17 up. That's as close as it would be. The Buckeyes responded with 10 unanswered. Henderson proved he's like Novocaine. Give him time, and he always works. He broke off one for 68 yards, and all of a sudden he had 91 yards for 17 carries after that. He finished with 152 on 28. The Penn State offense answered, to cut the lead to 27-24, and the Buckeyes answered again with another field goal to stretch their lead to a TD's difference. Both Stroud and Clifford ended up passing for over 300 yards in this game. But the question that I have is, are the Buckeyes one of the 4 best teams in football after this win against number 20 Penn State? And the answer is hell no. You cannot be one of the 4 best teams in college football when we have 4 undefeated Power 5 teams and we have more than 4. I'm going to unpack this as we go, but I do not want to hear anybody tell me Ohio State looks good because the scoreboard said Oregon beat Ohio State at the shoe 35-28. Head-to-head matters in the CFP protocol. Winning the games has to matter, or have we been beaten on the same thing for an entire 9-week stretch? Number 8 Michigan State defeated number 6 Michigan 37-33 in East Lansing. All right. Kenneth Walker III is going to the Heisman ceremony in New York after this signature win against a previously undefeated Michigan to return, to retain, the Paul Bunyan Trophy. Michigan put up 333 yards in the first half, and as lopsided as the game seemed with the score at 23-14 at half to Michigan, it started out even worse for the Spartans. There were 3 explosive plays in the first half. That is, plays of 25 yards or more. All of them were either TDs or set up a TD. The first of those plays came while Michigan State had Michigan pinned inside its own 10-yard line. Then, on third down, Cade McNamara threw a pass in rhythm to Andrell Anthony, who took it 93 yards to the house. The true freshman had 6 catches for 155 yards with 2 TDs in his return to East Lansing, where he played his high school ball. That's one hell of a homecoming and a coming out party for him. McNamara had over 200 passing yards in what Jim Harbaugh called the best half of his career, and I think perhaps this is the best game Cade McNamara's ever played, and that's what MSU was willing to allow, quite honestly. Cade McNamara having a career day. So much of football is making a decision about what you're willing to allow. Mel Tucker and his defense coordinator, Scotty Hazelton, decided they were going to sell out against the run and force McNamara and that passing game to beat them. And with the win, Tucker became the first Michigan State head coach to begin his career 2-0 against Michigan in school history. That is a feat not even Nick Saban accomplished when he was head coach at Michigan State. But as good as McNamara played, I couldn't help but notice how badly Peyton Thornton played too. McNamara didn't turn the ball over until there was a minute left in the game, and Michigan was desperate. Thorne, though, threw a pick on the 1-yard line in the opening series, threw another off a tipped pass by Tulsa's own Dax Hill coming on a blitz, and he took a sack that looked like a strip sack, recovered for a TD. To me, ended up just being a sack. He turned the ball over twice and took a sack on the goal line. Those turnovers led to 10 Michigan points in what was once a 9-point ball game. Before McNamara and J.J. McCarthy turned back-to-back QB runs into 6 points, McNamara went over 280 pass yards when Michigan went up 30-14 in the third and finished with 383 passing yards in the game. Meanwhile, the firm of Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum was mostly held in check with 27 carries for 114 yards, totally outshined by one man at Michigan State, and you know who he is. The Heisman candidate rushed for 87 yards on 12 attempts with 2 TDs in the first, averaging 7.3 yards per rush in the first half. It was a harbinger of things to come. But after a Michigan State TD and 2-point conversion made it a 1-score game, Walker smoked the Michigan defense for a 58-yard score. With a second straight 2-point conversion, it was 30 up. With 12 and change left to play, and then with his 20th rush of the day, K9 gave Michigan State its first lead of the game with 5:08 left to play. It was a 23-yard marauding run for his 5th TD of the game after beginning the game with just 9 all season. K9 went over 1,000 rush yards this season and is the first to get there at Michigan State since 2014, right? Means that he's also the fastest guy to get to 1,000 rush yards in school history. And he's also the first one to rush for 1,000 yards in his first 8 games of the season since Javon Ringer did it in 2008. He finished the game with 197 rush yards on 23 rushes. That is 8.6 yards per carry and those 5 TDs. Means he rushed for more yards than Thorne passed for, who had 196. Walker has 1,194 yards in 8 games. Kenneth Walker III is going to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. The only question left now is, will he win it? But that's not what I think is the most impressive and or important question following Michigan State's win against Michigan. That question is, after Jim Harbaugh has fallen to 2-9 against AP-ranked opponents, what's he have to do this season for this season to still feel successful? Because we're sitting at 7-1 with Michigan, and this was their first opportunity to beat a ranked opponent. They came up short. Yes, you have the game left after the game was canceled last year. And if Jim Harbaugh can somehow beat an Ohio State team he has never beaten as a head coach, yes, I believe Michigan fans will be happy with that and go bowling and miss the Big Ten championship game again, and everything will be fine. But if he wins every other game but loses to Ohio State, yes, Michigan fans are once again going to be beside themselves, and we're going to come back with that 2-9 stat and ask, what has Jim Harbaugh actually done that would lead us to believe he's one of the great college football coaches? And it feels like it's going to take a great college football coach to win a Big Ten championship at Michigan, let alone beat Ohio State. All right, quickly, Wisconsin stomped on number 9 Iowa 27-7 at Camp Randall. Wisconsin's defense sacked Spencer Petras 5 times, held him to 9 of 19 for 93 yards passing, held running back Tyler Goodson to 27 rushing yards on 13 carries and forced 3 turnovers. In a season that felt lost a month ago in Madison, Wisconsin got its first ranked win of the season and improved to 5-3 overall and 3-2 in conference play. After dropping its second straight game, both coming against Big Ten West opponents, Iowa is playing like it's been eating all that corn and had to go behind their mama's house only to get caught squatting by Ezell, who ain't gonna tell nobody else. Those of y'all that get that joke, you the real ones. I love you the most. That Iowa loss means Minnesota took the lead in the West Division with a 41-14 win against Northwestern and a 4-1 record in conference play. Not bad for a Gophers team that lost its top 2 tailbacks and put money in the bag against Bowling Green earlier this year. And one more note on the Badgers' victory. The win against number 9 Iowa was Wisconsin's first top 10 win since beating number 9 Minnesota on November 30th, 2019. I love this goofy sport. It's ridiculous. Now, as for the Big Ten, is the Big Ten really just the Big Ten East? But is the Big Ten going to cannibalize itself so that it doesn't get a team in the college football playoff? And it's on the table, right? The way that I couch this is, none of us actually believe with our 2 eyes that Penn State is a great football team. They have a good 2 great defense, depending on who they're playing and how they're playing. But you don't expect that offense to go and beat up on anybody, and they wouldn't beat up on Ohio State's defense, okay? We also have to look at this from the standpoint of who does Ohio State have left to play, and they have Michigan State and Michigan to end the season. Both of those teams are good football teams. Not to say that we think Ohio State will lose to them, but I didn't think Ohio State would lose to Oregon, and that's why we play football games, quite honestly. Now, what I think is more important here is Michigan State good enough at the outset on Tuesday to be ranked ahead of Ohio State? Yes, it's the answer to that question, and I think it's unequivocally obvious based on resume and record so far. But the CFP committee is going to tip its hand in how it feels about Ohio State, which has an enormous fan base and has been playing great football of the past. But I want to talk about how we think about teams of the past and how that factors in and whether or not football games actually matter, because I really think that the winner of the Big Ten East Division ought to play in the college football playoff if they got a case. But as you're going to see, there's still one team that doesn't care what the Big Ten East is going to do. Thanks for watching this video, and remember, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any other videos on the #1 Ranked Show YouTube channel.